When it comes to corruption, usually the perpetrator tends to stick to one area they like to exploit. In other videos, we've explored those who have used their power to grease the wheels the way they'd like them to be spun. We've also looked at just plain old pocket-filling greed. But when it comes to Mel Reynolds, his is a story of a cocktail of wrongdoing that very few would want to consume. His behavior was and is downright deplorable, and all from a man who, on the face of it, was a talented, intelligent ambassador for his minority. This underdog turned dirty dog abused finances, the truth, and even underage girls. This is a closer look at the corruption on Mel Reynolds. Reynolds was a talented scholar. He attended both Oxford University in the UK and Harvard, two of the most prestigious colleges in the world. This led him to the position of assistant professor of political science at Roosevelt University in Chicago. Following this was a road into politics for himself, but this was not a smooth one. After two battles with long-standing representative and outspoken anti-Semite Gus Savage, and even surviving a drive-by shooting, Reynolds was elected to the House in 1992 with a little help from district restructuring. But it was certain actions from this campaign that would see him step down only 3 years later. Rumors started circulating in 1994 about the congressman and inappropriate behavior towards members of his team that were underage. These rumors were so widespread that Reynolds hosted a press conference to deny allegations that hadn't been officially made. Nothing says guilt like denying something no one's openly called you out on yet. The main allegation was that he had a sexual relationship with a 16-year-old, but these would develop into a much more sinister group of claims that even included requesting sexual images of a younger girl. Amazingly, despite the claims leading to an official indictment in August of 1994, Reynolds was re-elected in November, but less amazingly, this was simply because he ran unopposed. However, he was on borrowed time. It wasn't long before he had to answer to the courts, and they deemed that he was guilty of 12 counts of criminal sexual assault, sexual abuse, obstruction of justice, and solicitation of child pornography. It's worth noting that the obstruction of justice counts were due to Reynolds also attempting to convince the girls he was abusing to lie about their experiences. The conviction was dealt in August 1995, and Reynolds resigned in October. He didn't have much choice, as House rules state that a convicted felon can't vote as a representative. Plus, he was given 5 years in jail. Of course, this sentencing alone would have been enough to see Reynolds in a corrupt Hall of Fame, but there was a lot more to come. A year before he was expected to be released in 1998, Reynolds was facing allegations of a very different kind: financial wrongdoing. This was far from an isolated incident either. He was accused of 1 count of bank fraud, 2 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of making false statements on loan applications, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the Federal Election Commission, and 4 counts of making false statements to the FEC. He was found guilty of 15 out of 16 counts. In other words, he was very guilty. When the verdict was read out, he was said to be emotionless, as the jury took less than 4 hours to reach their decision. Throughout the trial, Reynolds was said to make excuses and blame everyone apart from himself, including unethical bankers and thieving ex-campaign staffers. The jury foreman, Chuck Hampton, perhaps said it best when he concluded that the defense laid all their chips on Mel Reynolds' credibility, and he didn't have any, so they lost. The trial exposed Reynolds' desperate and cowardly behavior. Witnesses said they saw him shred campaign checks that were under investigation. he concealed as much as $275,000 in liabilities to obtain 6 loans totaling $150,000. Add to this the fact that he hid the fact that he illegally used borrowed funds to make a down payment on a $310,000 home. But why stop there? He also forged the signature of a campaign volunteer, saying she was an executive campaign manager, and claimed that she was responsible for 2 bank loans totaling $45,000. This was when he was put under scrutiny from a bank manager asking Reynolds to explain his finances. And all of this just scratches the surface of Reynolds' financial corruption. In the end, he was forced to see out his original charges and do an extra 42 months for the second conviction. This might have been the end of Reynolds' political career, despite a couple of failed attempts to resurrect it, but it wasn't the end of his criminal career. A trip to Zimbabwe led to an extended stay against his visa, for which he was detained for. He also faced claims against him for making homemade porn with several women in the hotel he was staying at. In Zimbabwe, this is illegal. A deportation to South Africa saved himself from any further punishment. Then he found himself back in the US and back in the courts on claims of not filing the correct taxes, for which he was found guilty yet again. It seems as though corruption runs through Reynolds' blood. Mel Reynolds is a man who has lived not only an interesting life, but an infamous one. He's been found guilty of a variety of crimes, and many of which were committed either during office or on the campaign trail for it. He clearly abused his position of power to get what he wanted, which was clearly money without being held accountable for it, as well as repulsive sexual exploits he attempted to bury. It was only for so long that he could get away with his crimes, and so it was ultimately proven. The courts have always managed to catch up with him. The only question is what other skeletons are in Reynolds' closet that are yet to be found. If you'd like to see more videos like this one that take an in-depth look into corruption of the elite, then please like the video and subscribe to be notified of any new uploads. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this is Eat the Rich.